Next coach who coaches our quarterbacks played at the University of Alabama, coached at the University of Alabama for a number of years, coached at Notre Dame for a while. I asked him to join me in professional football. Boy, what a great job he has done, and that's Mal Moore and his wife, Charlotte.
Dozier, Alabama, my home and will always be my hometown. And Dozier is located in Crenshaw County. Luverne, Alabama is the county seat, just south of Brantley on Highway 29. A neat place, good people, good little farm town. This is the greatest memories of my life there. I grew up an Alabama fan. My father was a huge Alabama fan, and we always listened to the games on the radio, of course, and many a time on a dove shoot on Saturday afternoons, have the old pickup close by and kept up with the games. I was looked at by a coach named Dorsey Gibson. He was on the staff ahead of Coach Bryant. But from Coach Bryant's staff, Jerry Claiborne came by to see me, and one other coach from that staff was with Coach Claiborne. I can't recall the name right now, but it was an exciting time for me, knowing that I would get the opportunity to attend the university and to play. I simply had no idea what was in front of me. Playing at Dozier, Alabama was, I think my senior year, we had 302 students, first grade through the 12th. My junior year, we had 11 seniors, 5 boys, 6 girls. Playing football there was a lot like getting up a game in the backyard. And to be truthful, I had never been hit in my life till I came to Alabama. And I can still, in my mind, see the first guy, it was Jim Blevins, that hit me. And that was a stunning happening to me. I met him, Gene Stallings, Coach Stallings, who was maybe 23, 24-year-old assistant coach, introduced me to Coach Bryant. And, you know, I was totally ignorant to a lot of things. I had been raised on a farm, good parents, great parents, unbelievable parents, really, but I'd never been around much. When I shook hands with Coach Bryant, I said something to this effect, "Glad to meet you, Bear." And didn't call him Coach. He kind of moved on down the hall. I think he probably recognized the fact that I was a real rookie. I remember the first practice, and at the time we were coming in, a lot of the players had been, I guess that spring had left the squad. That fall, the first week or so of practice, many of them were injured, many of them were unable to practice. And we came in as a group of freshmen. I think there were 83 or 84 in our freshman class that year. We were kind of fed to them right off. It was electrifying, yet it was amazing too, the difference in what I was witnessing and what I had experienced back at Dozier, Alabama.
Told this story a number of times. Coach Bryant, for whatever reason, used to tell me when he'd get mad at me from time to time, said, "I don't want you to forget now, Mal Moore's as good a football coach as you are." And I've always felt like he's been a good coach. He's done us an excellent job, and I think he's done an excellent job at Alabama.
In those days, we absolutely, to my knowledge, we did not have a weight at the University of Alabama. Everything in the off season, all the work was for endurance, for quickness, mental toughness, oneness within a team or within a group. We had an off-season program that it would be hard to describe what we did, what we went through. But I've said many times we were like Marines. We were brainwashed. Everybody believed in what we were doing. They believed in the coaches. They believed in the offense, the defense. We were an extension of Coach Bryant's way of thinking. Well, it's certainly, I think as you go along in your career, you recognize and realize the great success of this program, that this program has enjoyed for so many, many years. Not just a spurt in history, but it's been consistently so good, so strong for so many years that you're kind of taking on a burden and a responsibility of representing that tradition, representing that pride that this state has in the University of Alabama Crimson Tide. It's a great name, and I think it's certainly a sense of pride and a great feeling, to be a part of that. Yeah, it was. Then you did play both ways, offense, defense. You were involved in the special teams because I think the offensive team that was on the field would handle the punting chores, other than just the punter coming in. Everybody was involved in all phases. The squads in those days were much smaller in size, height, weight, everything, and they were able to, through great conditioning, and they weren't carrying the weight that players carry now. They were able to play, I think, longer periods of time because of that. But Richard was truly a great competitor. And I think that's the mark of most all the players that played for Coach Bryant. That's the kind of player he would put on the field. His saying about that, when he put one out, they had been saucered and blown. And he would say that a lot on television. And I've always felt like a lot of people didn't know exactly what he was talking about, but in the old days when people would pour their coffee in the saucer, the old folks, and they'd blow it to cool it, it was ready. Richard was, when Coach Bryant put them out there, they were ready. And he was truly one of them. He's had a great career in the coaching profession, simply, and I think he draws so much from his days at Alabama. When I've talked with him, he still coaches and believes so strongly in technique, and that was how our teams won so consistently and for so long, was simply because they knew how to play football and they had mastered the techniques of their position. Well, I answer that question this way. I've been involved with 7 national championships. One as a player in 1961. Then I was on the coaching staff 64, 65, 73, 78, 79, and 92. 6 as a player, 6 as a coach, 1 as a player. The first one in 1961, it was exciting because it was so exciting to everybody involved. Coaches, Coach Bryant, the university, the city. We had a big parade, and that was something I'd never experienced, and that was fun. And But then after that, 64 and 65 and 73, I don't think we ever did anything other than maybe shake hands and try to do it again. It was something that we talked about a lot with the players, Coach Bryant did. And that was what we were shooting for and trying to position for every year. Was, you know, the big trick is getting in position to play for a national championship. And I imagine what would be amazing if you looked at how many times we played for the national championship and lost, not counting the ones that we won. And that was, it was a time in the 60s and 70s where a school just truly dominated and was, by the luck of the draw or by the greatness of the team or the whatever, you know, we ended up where we had a shot at playing for the national championship.
We were staying at the Fontainebleau Hotel, and I'm right there at the front desk paying my incidentals. And I looked to my left, and the bus was there, so I thought I had plenty of time. But I may have had one or two people in front of me. But anyway, I'm there getting. By the time I get there, I get ready to pay my cash and everything. But anyway, I noticed the bus pull off, and when the bus pulled off, there were several coaches. Now I don't know if Coach Griscoll was one of them, but I do know Coach Crane, Paul Crane, saw me. And you know we weren't going to open that door with Coach Bryant there on that bus to see him being late. So what I did, I started running.
He would run up beside the buses as they slowed down slightly for an intersection. He was gaining on that third bus. We were all pulling for him. And then the police would stop the traffic, the buses would go on through. We'd kind of pull away from Woodrow.
Here I am running in that crimson blazer, you know, in my slacks and everything. And hey, it was about maybe, I don't know, it seemed like it was about 3 or 4 blocks, but it might have been a half a mile or so, I don't know.
Then the next intersection, they'd slow down a little bit and Woodrow would run back up beside the bus, and then we'd pull away from him. All I knew is that I was not gonna be late, and when that bus got there, that I was going to be there when they got off the bus at the Sugar Bowl. And I wasn't tired. I was more scared than anything. And of course, he was warmed up when we got there. He didn't have to wait for the on-the-field warm-ups.
I often wondered if Coach Bryant knew. I think he knew, but he never did say anything to me about it.
When we went to the Wishbone, as Coach Steve Sloan had left as the quarterback coach, I was taking over that position. And I believe this was the 71 season that we were going to the Wishbone. And it was a time, I think, that in our history where this was a very crucial decision that Coach Bryant made and made alone. And he, in his friendship with Darrell Royal and the time that he spent with him after our spring training the year before, where we spent all of our time in a pro set, passing, throwing the ball a lot. I think from that time until, say, July, latter part of July, right before the start of practice, Coach Bryant had made his mind up that we couldn't win throwing the ball. With our personnel, that we had to go to the Wishbone. And I think he took this approach so that it would be as secretive about it as possible. He told the staff, I believe around the 27th, 28th of July, that we were going to open the season against Southern Cal in the Coliseum in the Wishbone offense. And we were going to close the season in Legion Field against Auburn in the Wishbone offense. We wouldn't get 2 or 3 games into the season and decide we couldn't make it work. His words were we were going to sink or swim with the Wishbone. But I think Coach Bryant was also making a decision about his own career. We were either going to make it with that, or he was also, or he would have resigned. Darrell Royal was scheduled to speak at our clinic, football clinic that we had. Back then we had the state all-star football game and basketball game at the Coliseum. We would have 1,000 high school coaches or so come in for the clinic. Coach Royal was invited, had been invited for quite a while to speak at this clinic. He had just won the national championship in the Wishbone. We never had time to make a playbook before the start of practice. We went undefeated that year in the Wishbone, and Coach Bryant was very superstitious, so he didn't want a playbook ever made. So we went 11 years without an offensive playbook, simply because of his superstition in this regard. But the Wishbone offense is a great offense, and it fit Alabama at that time. I think in the 70s we were the first team in the history of the NCAA to win 100 games. We won 103 games in 10 years. The games that we lost, we very easily could have won and probably should have won. It was a time in the history at Alabama where when Alabama played, everybody on that team, everybody at this university, everybody in the state of Alabama, and I think everybody in the country expected Alabama to win, even the team we were playing. We had a way of thinking. We were very, very good defensively with Ken Donahue, Brother Oliver, Jeff Rousey, these guys that coached the defensive side of the ball. And we were very good in the kicking game that Coach Rutledge handled for so many years. But we had an offense that in most cases we kept the ball 65, 70% of the time in the games. We had an offense that was a great, fun offense to coach, and it took place at a time where we got away with it for that length of time. Rules changed in the NCAA with the way you block, the use of your hands, that kind of took us out of it in order to recruit linemen, to recruit quarterbacks. But I wouldn't take anything in the world for those years of coaching and being a part of that time at the University of Alabama.
One person who always stood out was Nick Saban, a man who has coached a team to the pinnacle of college football. His teams always play with confidence and pride. And I know in order to win a national championship, a team has to be mentally as well as physically tough. Coach Saban's teams have always possessed those qualities.
I coached for Coach Stallings, I guess 1 year, maybe 2 years, when he was an assistant coach at Alabama. I was in '64, and I'm not sure if it was '65 also, but I know in '64 I was like his graduate assistant as a young coach myself. Was around him a little bit. When Coach Bryant retired from Alabama, I went to Notre Dame and coached there for 3 years. And while I was at Notre Dame, Coach Stallings on a couple occasions came to the campus at Notre Dame to work out a Notre Dame player or whatever, and he and I would spend a little time together and kind of kept up that way. And when my time at Notre Dame ended, Coach Stallings was being hired as the head coach of the St. Louis Cardinals. And through Bobby Marks and Dee Powell, both who played with Coach Stallings at A&M and coached with me here at Alabama. And I had called Coach Stallings, but I also had those two guys helping me with this. Coach Stallings hires me to coach the receivers and the tight ends with the St. Louis Cardinals. But then that was the first time that I had been around him in a working situation for 30 years, 20 or 30 years, I suppose. But I felt very comfortable with Coach Stallings, always have. He has a lot of similarities to Coach Bryant. Without question, he had total control of those players in the NFL where he was the head coach. That made it easier for the assistant coaches, and certainly easier for me because I had never coached in the NFL. And then when he came back to Alabama, got the head coaching job at Alabama in the 90 season, he offered me the position on his staff to come back. And never dreamed that I would come back to Alabama, but I was eager to do so, and I appreciate Coach Stallings for giving me that opportunity. And what we were doing, and the approach we were taking was the right approach. And I think we lost a couple of games, there that we could have won, should have won probably. You got to make certain, you can't jump around, change, or second guess yourself. You got to believe in what you're doing. And I think that was one thing that we did. And it was certainly, I know Coach Stallings believed strongly in this approach that we were taking. And then we, got things kind of turned a little bit and won some games as we went on down the road.